Welcome, travelers. I wanted to talk about today's understanding or the consensus about psychology and what is considered effective or even valid. So the first problem, I think, is that many academics today, they identify themselves with being scientists or evidence-based or anything like that. Like they represent a certain standard that is the highest standard that you can actually have in basically life, I guess. That's how I see it. It's almost like it represents a set of values and morals. Like, well, pretty much we know it's like a religion anyway. But the core of science actually should be to observe and gather data and evaluate that data, interpret it, and draw conclusions or hypotheses. And if something else comes along that disputes that conclusion, then you should be taken into consideration and the knowledge base should be adjusted to that. I think people should be more aware of how flawed even that system is. The problem is that there's always something that's been left out. There's always a blind spot, or at least, most of the time. I think it's a mistake to assume that it is not the case, that no mistakes or no blind spots are there or can happen or are not even the majority of our understandings. So I think it's a mistake to write that off, that we don't have misunderstandings, blind spots, and we don't make mistakes. Even if we're adhering to the scientific, principles, it's kind of just a workflow, an idea of how to approach certain aspects that you want to improve on or learn about. And so that comes with a lot of different baggage on how to, function in that system with peer reviews and stuff, which also allows for a lot of corruption and everything like that. So this also includes, of course, psychology and what we understand, and also what, the louder, the more dominant collective consensus on in the academic spaces are on what that actually entails, and what's pseudoscience and stuff, even though the very act of labeling something just because it doesn't fit the worldview as pseudoscience is pseudoscience, so it's the other way around, but we know that. The psychology of Jung was kind of connected to mysticism, but only an understanding of the human psyche, and consciousness was a part of this. So was the persona, the shadow, the archetypes. So consciousness was part of that system, that interpretation, and therefore the psyche of a human. And it's consciousness, then the archetype or archetypes. This also defines the personality, which different personality tests, or in this case the Myers-Briggs personality test, is based on. And then the persona and the shadow, of course. And so that's the collective unconscious. I think it's a really good idea, but being a manifestation of the collective unconscious, or this kind of higher collective thought amalgamation, is that it's it kind of lumps in different things that should be investigated, separately. So that's severely lacking of, taking into account all the modalities of our reality. It's science fiction and fantasy. Like, I can see that it's science fantasy, basically. It's kind of the imaginations that people have, but also some is unconsciously, projected outwards into this art, but some things are deliberate as well. And then also there are deeper workings which we're not aware of. But even in these things, the wildest kind of fantasies and science fiction novels are still, they don't even grasp what's really going on, or what in some parts of this creation is going on. It's like, it's insane, even just on this realm, like in this reality kind of. So it's much more than that. And nonetheless, I think it's very helpful to have this understanding of Jung, and sometimes even Freud. And also I really like Adler and his take on how valuable community is, and being kind of useful in a way to society and stuff. It's like you can go to the micro and macro level to that, for yourself to be the best version you can be, or strive for that. Also to a more outwards projected into, or more a bigger collective. So this gives meaning to this very difficult life we have here, or which can be very difficult. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be. I mean, that's why we are here, I think, and we gather information and share to improve that. So I think that is very interesting as well, and I think also, regardless of what they kind of did at the time, they were all, I don't know about Adler, but Jung as well, were dealing in kind of a bit of a shady stuff. There might be even, kind of politics involved in there. But what many people don't understand is that this is the case for everyone, especially today, even more so today than back then. Also, that most wouldn't be safe from having like slips and slipping in unconsciously some limiting beliefs or political or moral views that might actually not even be what they really want to see. So it kind of slips these, but we need to be aware of that is happening. And also, if someone's connected to maybe Freemasonry or other kinds of societies, more occult societies, which you're not learning the secrets unless you're in there, it's kind of still, these people, not all people are bad or have bad intentions or anything like that, even though they compromise some things in their life, or they act on some level, even with people that do that on purpose. These are people who might be in these kind of brotherhoods or whatever. They might unintentionally be part of something that's not maybe for the best of mankind, but there are also people who do that very much on purpose. And on the higher stages of influence in this realm, you can see that more and more. And also we see that as well today through our media and stuff that we have available, fortunately. So also to the point of our conversation, to bring that back, is you can learn from people or from people's work that you might not fully agree with, either within their work or in their personal life or what they did in their past, or what they stood for, how they acted. It is, I think, a paradox, because on one hand you need to have clear boundaries in order to protect the pure, the good. But on the other hand, you can learn from a body of work from someone who has, mixed intentions, or even kind of bad intentions, but uses maybe things that are helpful in it of themselves. They can use symbols for their dark magic or something like pentagram, but this symbol was not connected inherently to something evil. It's just, it was abused, or essentially it's not even abused. They just chose to use that symbol for their advantage and their rituals, and even to build like something like a meme, or a collective interpretation that it is evil, and that also fosters their intentions they have with it. So that's kind of interesting, I think. But what you can learn from that is that there are symbols that are powerful. They inherit their power just by being the shape they are. And so you have essentially learned something from maybe a dark ritual or whatever practitioner, something that can be used for good. And same with Carl Jung. To me, there is kind of a shadow thing going on there, but also not to that extent that it's, I think in Jung's case, it's kind of a very small percentage of what he did was corrupted or has corrupting influences or something. I could be wrong, but I see it as that. It's kind of very helpful to know that and to use that. So I'd like to continue the conversation about psychology another time, and in order to establish more a baseline on what's going on, just my thoughts on that, of course. And we'll leave it at that for today. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you're well. Sincerely, I wish you a wonderful rest of your day or a super relaxing night. And see you next time.